Welcome to the Jerry Pitre Show. If you love sports cards and cool collectibles, you're in the right place. Whether you're a longtime collector or just getting started, we'll talk about rare cards, cool finds, and the stories behind them. Join us as we explore the world of collecting. Episode 14 featuring Simon at simon466cards.
Hey, Jerry, what's happening?
Man, hey, thank you so much for coming on. Simon has been killing it in the content world. Like, great dude, cool opinions. I think he should show his face a little more in his videos. But other than that, he's killing it. He's killing it. So
I appreciate it.
You want to give everybody kind of like a little brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So simon466cards on YouTube and Instagram. I've been making videos for, I think, 2.5 years now at this point. A little over 2 years, I think. But I started collecting in the 90s. I grew up in this city in Canada called Edmonton, where all they do is hockey. So I grew up playing hockey, watching hockey. And so, of course, I started collecting hockey cards in the 90s. And kind of like everybody else, I grew up and forgot about cards for a while. And then I came back during the pandemic. And now I'm mostly in basketball, but I still collect some hockey. And that's kind of my hobby re-origin story, I guess, with the pandemic and everything. But yeah, I always loved cards as a kid, and I got busy with other things. And then once I came back in my life, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I love this stuff, man. This is awesome. So yeah, and then I started seeing the content that was out on YouTube and whatnot, or not actually whatnot, but you know what I mean, on YouTube. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. I think I could offer some unique opinions on there. And so I reached out to a couple of people and got some tips and stuff. And they're like, it's not that hard. Just buy a microphone and hit the record button, and off you go and use this program. And that's what I did. And that's kind of my content origin story and my hobby origin story.
That's super solid. How was it first received? Because you've got a wife and kids, right?
I have a wife, no kids.
No kids? Okay. So how did your significant other receive, like, hey, I want to spend a lot of money on pieces of cardboard, and I swear I'm not crazy?
So here's the good part. We started dating we started dating during the pandemic. So I got married last year. Oh, I guess 2023. And so I had already started recollecting before we started dating. So it was already part of this is who I am. And this is the stuff. She's literally in the room.
Take it or leave it. Are you on the boat or off the boat?
Exactly. You know what's funny? She's in the other room right now. She just started giggling because she could hear me and what I'm saying. So yeah, so it was one of those things like, this is what I do. This is one of the many strange quirks that I have. And, this is who I am. And she's totally cool with it. And that's why she's the best.
That's so epic. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I see all these guys at the show. They're like, hey, because you hear people, they go, oh, hey, do you want a receipt printed this, that? Oh, no receipt. We didn't spend any money today. It's like, oh, that sounds like a great time.
Yeah. No, she's very supportive. She finds it hilarious that I get to do these things, like, where people know me, like, yourself. Whenever I get a mention by other channels or other people, they're like, oh my God, that's so funny. That's so fun. And she gets all excited. So it's really cute.
That's cool. Yeah. The support's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Top tier.
Yeah.
So, okay. When you first kind of jump back into it, like, what was the first kind of stuff you were going for? Like, especially like, once you got back into it and you realized what you wanted to collect, what was like your I got something super cool?
So when I first jumped back in, I didn't know anything. It had all changed from the 90s, obviously. There was grading, there's parallels. It was all very confusing. And so honestly, what I did was I watched a bunch of sports card investors videos. And just because that was the only content that was out there. And so I watched a bunch of his stuff. And immediately I was like, well, this seems weird. just in terms of how players were valued and all that kind of stuff, and like how are rookies valued more than like established stars, and it didn't make any sense to me. So that's where I started.
Still totally doesn't make sense, but
Yeah. And so that's where I'm like, I don't think this makes any sense. That's where I started. At that point, I was just on Instagram, and so I said, well, hey, I created my own account. Here's some things and thoughts that I have, and people seem to latch onto that. And then the one guy that I started researching and not collecting, but became a fan of was Darius Garland. So this was after he had an awful rookie year, and then like was sort of making some waves in the second year. And so it was 2021, I believe. It was the pandemic. I wasn't doing a whole lot. Everybody's trapped inside. So I went onto NBA.com. There is a function that allows you to watch every single statistic and every single game if you were an insane person like me, and just watch. So I watched every single shot he took in the season, every single assist he made, every turnover he made, every steal he had, every block he had. Because I had heard, because I listened to a lot of basketball content, that just people kept on dropping like, oh, Cavs front office is really confident in Darius Garland and what they've seen and whatever. And so I was like, well, I mean, if he's right now, he's a nobody. He's had an awful 1.5 seasons. His cards are probably worth nothing. And so I bought a ton of his stuff, of his higher end stuff. And that has worked out well. And so that's one of the guys that I bought. And so along those lines, I have, because Garland didn't sign with Panini, so he has no signed licensed stuff. It's all
really,
yeah. So the only thing he has is because he signed with Upper Deck, so there's no Panini signed stuff unless it's like an in-person auto that he scribbles on like a Prism card or something. But so yeah, as a result, there's only one set of RPAs that he has with Upper Deck, which is like a throwback exquisite, where the patch is actually from a shoe. So it's like a pink patch. It's kind of cool.
That's kind of sick.
Yeah. And then it looks like the LeBron exquisite because it's like a throwback. And it's out of 99, and those are the only 99 that he had. So I bought 3 of those, and then I resold them. Unfortunately, I didn't make as much money as I wanted to. And then he literally only has one rookie 1/1 auto with Goodwins or something.
Okay, yeah, Goodwin champions.
Goodwin Jams, yeah. So there's literally no other 1/1 auto of his that exists, and so I own it, and I also own the 2021 Goodwin's 1/1 auto of his. I literally just bought that from the same guy I bought the rookie one from the same dealer. I bought it from him in Toronto at the Sport Card Expo. Shout out to the Sport Card Expo in Toronto in November, so a couple months ago. And so I just started talking to him like, hey, remember you sold me this card? He's like, oh my God, that was you? I thought you would have sold it. I'm like, no, I kept it. And he's like, oh. So then we made a deal the next day where he bought the other one. I bought the other 1/1 from him. And he's like, and he's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, can I take a picture? I'm like, absolutely. And he like took out a phone and he's like, oh man, that's kind of
so sick.
Yeah. So sick. When you get a dealer excited about cards that he's selling because he thinks it's just super cool, where like the cards were kind of reunited, I'm like, oh, okay, well then I must be doing something right. Where like a dealer who just like does this whatever, he's like, let me take a picture of this. It's kind of fun, kind of cool story. So.
Well, I'll tell you, as a dealer and kind of as a 2025 goal myself, and kind of like what we've talked about on the podcast, is really trying to find the products that find the end consumer. Yep. Because staying in this whole flip game scenario, it's just a race to the bottom versus, hey, Darius Garland's your guy. You got a 1/1. Oh, hey, by the way, great to see you again. Guess what? I got another, like you remember those people. Like I've got a guy from our town that I PC, and pretty much everybody local, they go, hey, I've got, and so, it's cool, man. That's sick.
Yeah. Having said that, I have those cards. that doesn't mean there's not a price that I could be paid. Just
Listen,
yeah.
listen. In life, everything really, for the most part, with these kind of things has a price. Like there's a few things that I'll be like overly high on, but God, if you approached it,
yeah. As the man once famously said, "There's always a price for the $1 million man." Or yeah, is that the phrase? Everybody's got a price for the $1 million man. That's what there. That's
okay.
There we go. Yeah. So.
Okay, so now that you've kind of been in it, what kind of like, criteria do you use when deciding to add something to the collection?
If it's unique and cool. So, for example, in my PC is a 2007 Topps Chrome Tim Duncan X-Fractor, which is, I don't collect Tim Duncan, but the card, and I don't have it with me, it's in my closet, but it's basically Tim Duncan taking a free throw in Golden State. And the reason why you know it's Golden State is in the background, you see everybody waving those like wiggly, like those sticks that like wiggle, trying to distract him. And so it's a really cool looking photo, but because it's an X-Fractor, when you tilt the card, the wiggly sticks actually look like they're wiggling in real life.
That's so sick.
And so I was like, well, first of all, the image itself is already cool enough as it is, but then as an X-Fractor, I'm like, this card looks just cool. I want it. And so I bought it, and I got it in a PSA 10. When I got it, it was actually mislabeled. It was a 2008 Topps Chrome. So then I went to PSA at the National, and I said, like, hey, here's the thing you guys screwed up. Can you fix this? So I became a Pop 1. It went from a Pop 0 to Pop 1. I became the Pop 1. Now it's a Pop, and then now it's a Pop 2, and I almost bought it when it went up for auction, but I did. But that's a card that, in that parallel with that image, is so unique and cool that I just had to have it. And so I bought it. And I remember at the National, once I got the card back, I was at one of those awesome, fun National Trade Nights, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. And I was sitting down with this guy, and this guy was like, that card looks sick. I want it. Are you like, what do you want for trade? I'm like, this is part of my PC, man. It's not for trade. I'm sorry. And he was like pushing me pretty hard. He didn't make an offer or anything because he respected that, like, I wanted to come to PC. But I was like, oh, I just realized I don't want to sell this at all. I really like this card now that I have it in hand, and it's right thing. And so I'm not gonna sell it. End of story. And that was kind of my moment where, oh yeah, this is permanent PC stuff. And so when you ask, what do I collect? It's stuff that's cool, stuff that's unique, and stuff that's fun. So yeah, I think that's the answer to that question.
Okay, so follow up to that same question. Do you grade? If so, what company do you use? Or are you, a wild man and say, nope, penny sleeves for everybody? Like, how do you collect?
So I usually, most of the stuff I buy is graded, I would say, generally. The only stuff that I've graded is some of those Darius Garland cards that I mentioned. Like I graded a bunch of the exquisite RPAs and the 1/1. I do have this idea, or I have this logic that nobody else in the hobby probably agrees with me, but I think that cards that are generally white or black should be in SGC tuxedos because they look way better. And that is my opinion. And so nobody in the hobby agrees with me, and that's fine. But
I like the SGC tuxedos. Now, me personally, I preference it with the vintage. Like, I think it almost looks better in a SGC slab than it does in a PSA.
Yeah, the PSA slab is fine; it gets the job done. But for
aesthetically,
it's like we're not talking about resale; we're just talking about pure appearance, right? But if we think about cards as pieces of art or art-esque,
it displays the art significantly better.
Wouldn't you want the holder that displays and positions the card and makes it look better? And so one of the other guy I mainly PC is Joel Embiid. So he's got this Obsidian. The Obsidian has these 1-of-1 cards. They're called Electric Etches, and so it's all black with like refractor stuff on it. And so I own 2 of those 1-of-1s from a couple of different years, or actually I own 3 of them now. But 2 of them, I bought them all raw, and then they're mostly black, Obsidian. And so as a result, these are 1-of-1s. They're saying my PC. I want these to look cool, so I got them graded with SGC because it's a black card and a black tux. It looks cool with the white label on top. And so that's what I did, and that's for myself to make it look cool. I don't care about resale because it's probably not going anywhere. And so I think they look way better than they would have in a PSA holder. And so for PC stuff like that, I will go with SGC. And I'm pretty sure the most controversial take is that I think cards like a Color Blast belong at SGC holders because that's a majority white in a black, like the contrast between the black and white. That's my hot take.
If you took comps off the table, nobody knew prices, I think overall they would choose the SGC. I mean, honestly, it does, it's kind of like, going to a jewelry store.
Yes.
It looks better when you've got that nice felt and it's got the little pillow.
Yeah.
And you got the nice slot. It looks better. I would totally agree.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to brag. I really love SGC Pete and the whole crew. Those guys and gals, they are after it. I mean, when you say I send it off on Monday this week and it's back to the door Monday next week, that's $15-20. Like, just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah. I think I have all the interactions I've had with them, and it's not that many, but everything I've seen of them and of what they're doing in the operation seems very customer focused and customer supportive, and very focused on the customer experience. So I have nothing but great things to say about SGC. Again, I've graded a lot of them. I've graded like a handful of cards, but nothing but good vibes from my end for them.
So with that being said, what would you kind of like, not to like label yourself, but like, would you be, a collector, dealer, flipper, investor, kind of like, how are you, where are you at in the state of the hobby right now?
I would say definitely not flipper. Oh, that's not true. Definitely not dealer because I don't have the quantity. I would say I am like 50% collector and 50% investor. So I have my PC where, like, that Tim Duncan card, and that's part of my PC, and I got a bunch of Embiid stuff. I got a bunch of Mario Lemieux stuff. That's all part of the PC. And then I have my investment, but also kind of cool collection stuff, which is like my Darius Garland 1-of-1s and things like that. So I would say 50-50. I certainly think about the investing side more just because the collecting side is straightforward. I have saved searches on eBay. If something pops up, I buy it, and that is the end of the story. And I put in a bid, and that's the most I'm willing to pay. And if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And so that's like, so I don't need to spend a lot of time thinking about it, other than, oh, that card looks cool. Let me create a new eBay search for that, and then I do it, and then I'm done. And I don't have to really think about it. Whereas I think on a day-to-day basis a lot more about which cards I think might go up, or which parts of the hobby might go up, or honestly, what would be a good content idea. And so on my phone, because I have all sorts of crazy ideas in my head flowing in and out all the time. So I just have a whole, on my phone, in the notes app, I have a whole list of ideas. Half of them don't make any sense to anybody else who reads them, but they make sense to me. And then it just, does this make sense as a video? Does this make sense in terms of its idea? Is it a unique idea? Because I don't want to make the same video that 25 other people have made it. That's not exciting to me. My focus is on making content that makes people think a little bit and maybe educate or whatever. It makes them say, I never thought of it like that. I think that's the ultimate goal for my stuff. So maybe 1/3 collector, 1/3 investor, 1/3 content creator. Let's go with that.
No, I'm totally game with that. And like, I can't tell you how many times I've like bought something and been like, I've even told like Amani, Yabo, the other guys, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy this month and I'm gonna try to sell it this month. Like I did it with Santa Claus. So I had bought it like 2 months before Christmas for like $15, already graded. And I said, yeah, come December, guess
Yeah.
what's moving, right? We're not rethinking the wheel. Like we're just, sure as stuff. I mean, enough to brag to my other buddies and go, sold.
I have a video coming out. I don't know when, maybe in the next week or so. I might actually come out tomorrow. I don't know. But there's a video coming out soon that talks about what I'm calling the perfect storm for a flip. So I bought a card. It was mislabeled on eBay, so it wasn't labeled properly. I bought it in 2023. I held it for a year. I sold it within the first like 2 or 3 weeks on auction in 2024. It was an Anthony Davis card, so he was going crazy for the first couple weeks for the Lakers, and I sold it. And so my video was like perfect conditions. Bought it, mislabeled card on eBay, held it for another year. This guy won off the first 2 seasons, and he's like, one of the top 3 players in the league at this point. How much money did I make? And that's one of my upcoming videos. Like, this is the perfect storm. So like, what is your actual profit potential when everything goes right versus all the different ways that things can go wrong with injuries and whatnot, right? So, and so that is one of the videos I have coming up in the next, let's say week. Might be sooner than that.
Nice.
So that's where I've blended both being a investor into content.
So, and that's really why we wanted to have you on, because like, so we actually met. Would you like to tell the story first off on how we met, and then we'll jump into your YouTube?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it was in Cleveland at the National at one of the trade nights. The trade nights opened at, I think, 6. And I think I was sitting at this table with Neo Cards and Comics, Sports Card Dad. We were all sitting at this table because I know them a little bit. And then they went out to get food. And so, but I was like, I still got a bunch of cards I want to trade or sell. You guys do what you got to do. I love trade nights. I think they're the best part of the hobby. And so I want to like soak this in. It was a Saturday night. And so they left. So I had a bunch of empty spots at my table. And then you guys rolled up. You and Yibo and Amani rolled up. And they're like, hey, is anybody sitting here? I'm like, no, they just left. Like, feel free to like plop down and like set up. Like, and then we introduced ourselves. And then you guys brought the energy, man. It was so fun being at the table with you guys. Like, you seem to know everybody. It was like you're the president or something, where you were like, shout out this guy, and then like, this guy, that guy. Like, and like, it wasn't just one of you, it was like all of you knew different people. And then you guys were it was so fun being at the table with you. And the part that there's 2 parts that I remember. One is that video that we saw. I don't remember that. And then the second part was people were saying, show's over, trade night's over, everybody pack up and leave. I don't remember this, Jerry. But so I started packing up, and you were like, no. What are you doing? We're staying till the end. Like, the best deals happen when everybody's about to leave. And I was like, really? No way.
For our audio listeners, this is the part.
And so I said, okay, you know what? What's an extra 10, 15 minutes? There's going to be a mad rush at the parking lot anyways. It's 11 or 10 or whatever it was at night. What's an extra 15 minutes going to do? So I stayed, and like within, I would say like 2 minutes of you saying that, I had sold the card. And I think I sold 3 or 4 cards that I had. And I didn't have that many. I had maybe like 15 cards. So I had sold a third or a quarter of what I had left. And they were all cash deals. They weren't even trades. They were straight up like sold cards. And I was willing to work with whoever's buying it. I wasn't over comps or anything in terms of what I sold them for. But I had a bunch of stuff that was Cleveland stuff. I had a bunch of Garland stuff that was there. And so I remember looking back at you, Jerry. I'm like, Jerry, you were right. You were right. Got to stay to the end. And so that was how I met you and the guys. And it was such a blast. So you guys are like, hey, you want to do a podcast? Like, absolutely. You guys are awesome. Happy to hang out with you guys some more. Online, obviously a little bit different, but yeah. I remember I look fondly back at that night and like just hanging out with you guys, and like, you know, 4 or like 3 guys I probably I've never met, would not have ever met, except
yeah, no doubt. That's why the National's so good. Like,
absolutely.
you literally, like, and by that point, you had been putting out great content. I mean, when you were shooting video, we're sitting there like, God, your video looks so good, because we're so new to it. You're just like on it.
Yeah, and I remember you asking me, like, it was afterwards or some other time, like, what do you use? I'm like, I use my iPhone. It's an iPhone X. It's just like 5 years old or 4 years old. And when I watch it back,
it looks great though.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's good enough. Like,
crispy, crunchy.
yeah,
Looks good.
Yeah, or in my case, it's good enough.
Good enough. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, for anybody who's out there who's thinking about content, that's the mindset. It's good enough. But for all of our collectors, like he said, stay to the very end. Me and Amani actually set up this past weekend at a show, and quite literally, they were putting up the tables and chairs, and we were still there doing deals. Like, you have to stay to the very end. And obviously, be nice to the people putting up the tables and chairs.
Yeah.
One of the guys was real interested in Pokemon. I said, hey, bro, I've got this whole like game I play with the kids. I'm going to hand you 2 Pokemon cards. One's real, one's fake. Use your hands. You can bend it. Like, just don't tear it. And he's like, I can't figure it out. And I'm like, okay, this. And gave him some free cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well, hey, y'all just remember, pull that door behind you. It's locked. It's like, yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and I like, for me, you might as well stay the extra 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like, where are you going at 10 o'clock at night? That's kind of where my thought was. It's like, Jerry's telling me to stay. These guys are like a hoot to hang out with anyways. So like, I'm just gonna have like 10, 15 minutes more fun. And if I sell an extra card or 2, even better. But if not, like, I'm in Cleveland at 10:30 or 10 o'clock at night. Where am I going? Well, like,
yeah. What's the rush?
What's the rush?
Well, not only that, you hit the nail on the head with the parking lot's about to be packed, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be waiting an extra 20 minutes, you might as well be wheeling and dealing. I mean, you wear a hat or something like that, and somebody goes, hey, and it's like, oh, yeah, I've got stuff for sale. Oh, you like football? Check this out. Like, crazy,
Yeah.
And what I liked with Simon, with his approach, was people would walk up, he'd go, hey, where are you from? What are you into? And he sat there and had a conversation, because a lot of these people, they just go, yeah, that's $50. Yeah, that's 75. And it's like, no, when you sit there and you chop it up with people, you were at the table with us when we ripped the baseball, and we got the
Wander.
We got the Wander Franco, and we ripped the Wander Franco in front of this little kid, and the little kid and the dad was there. And I don't know if you remember, but the little kid goes, wait, why did you guys rip that card? And his dad's face just like turns bright red, and was like, your dad's got to explain that to you, buddy.
Yeah. We're doing a lot of things here, but we're not doing parenting 101,
Not at National. Not at National.
I do remember that. I remember, I think we all kind of lost it when we opened up the pack. So like, for anyone who's listening, it was always the Scott from HQ Trivia. What was it called?
Yes. Yeah. I can't think of what his name was.
Scott something, right?
Yeah.
So he was there, and he was like the celebrity host or whatever. So at the end of the night, they were just firing off packs of Topps baseball to random people. He just had a whole box of it, just like giving them out. So I'm like, oh yeah, let's just open a pack, and then open a pack, and you guys are like, oh my god, I'm gonna wander. What's happening here? And so, I remember that fondly. It's good times.
Yeah, those are good times. I actually still have the ripped Wander.
Do you really?
I didn't get rid of it. It's such a great story. Like, because people are like, why do you have a ripped card? It's like, oh no, just wait. It comes with a great story.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Simon on is he's producing a lot of really great content, and I think he's hitting on some very big topics that really collectors, especially right now, we're recording this January 21, 2025, really should be aware of. And like one of the big ones I kind of wanted to start up with, you had a really great piece on unlicensed Panini cards.
Yes. Yeah, like basically everybody is saying, or not everybody, I've heard people say that when Panini loses their license in basketball and football, then they're going to produce unlicensed cards. Kind of what they do with baseball right now. Like Flawless puts out a bunch of unlicensed product for baseball without the logos, but it has all the players. And so you hear people say like, oh yeah, they'll just start doing that with football and basketball. And there'll be a lot of unlicensed product. And, you know, whether people like that or don't like that remains to be seen, but I think we probably know where that's headed. And so my comment is, no, that's actually not going to happen, because people seem to forget that when Fanatics took over the licenses and created Fanatics Collectibles, they partnered with MLB, the MLBPA, the NBA, the Players Association for NBA, and also the NFLPA. And so they own part of Fanatics Collectibles. I do not believe it's Fanatics. I believe it's just Fanatics Collectibles. So there is no chance that they will sign a deal with Panini to create basically competition for a company that they have an ownership stake in. That's not going to happen. And so if Panini is going to do unlicensed product, it will be prospects who are not part of the union or the Players Association, or it'll be retired players. So for example, Panini just signed a deal with Tim Duncan. So I think if there's going to be unlicensed product in the future, there'll be a lot of Tim Duncan. And then they're signing a bunch of college players. Like they signed Arch Manning, who's, you know, I think 18, 19. He's going to be in college for 2 or 3 years.
They're going to have a ton of his stuff.
It's going to be, and like that might do gangbusters, right? But there will be no active player stuff unless there are specific players that they have an exclusive contract with. And so I believe one of them is Aaron Judge, randomly. I found out has a bunch of unlicensed stuff already with Panini. But everybody else, like it's not, there will be no active player unlicensed product through Panini once those deals with the Players Associations expire, because they're not, they own part of Fanatics Collectibles. So it's not going to happen. So even though that might be what you think, because things like Flawless Baseball exist, well, whenever that contract with the PA runs out, that's it.
It's a done deal. Yeah, exactly. They're not going to renew a contract.
Exactly. So that's the point of the video.
And you know, kind of to note on what you were saying in the beginning, I would say every content creator right now. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers, but everybody's like, oh yeah, it'll be the same. It'll be the same. And it's like, there's no confirmation at all that it'll be the same, or that it'll be the same with like the Flawless and all that type of stuff.
Right.
Like, I don't know. How do you think that affects the market? Like as far as overall, because I mean, obviously that's to shift to tops and all that. But I mean, so many of these kids that started in 2020 and now they've been in it for a minute, you know, they love Flawless. They love National Treasures. They love Impeccable. Like, how does that affect our future? Or in your, you know, obviously you're not, you know, you can't predict anything, but you know, what's your thoughts?
I think we'll be fine. I don't think this is a big deal. What Panini's done in the last 5 years, I'm not exactly impressed with anyways. Like since the pandemic, basically, you know, there's been a bunch of content made about this, but all the rookie patches for basketball, football, they're not associated with the player in any way, shape, or form. Their solution every year just seems to be make more parallels. So I think everybody's, you know, like, what was it, 63 parallels for Prism this year or something crazy like that?
Like, crazy. I mean, how are you going to complete a rainbow? Like,
and so
it's not happening.
It's not happening. And so Panini has served its time, but also if we think about Prism and Panini actually, they didn't have any history with basketball and football in 2008, and we now look on them, or some people look on them very fondly over the past 15 years. So people were able to make the transition from Upper Deck and Tops to Panini in 08 or 09 or 12 or whatever it was. So why couldn't they make the transition back? Like in the moment, everything seems bigger and more daunting than it actually is. But in the bigger picture, this has happened before, and it was fine then, and this will happen now, and it'll be fine now. So I think it's, if I'm being honest, much ado about nothing. And if anything, and I feel like I'm going to come off as like a shill for Fanatics, like whatever. But the fact that the players and the leagues are own part of Fanatics Collectibles, that makes them more invested in making this thing work and succeed. And you see a lot more engagement with the players, the Fanatics show.
Yeah, them seeking out their own, what is it,
the
rookie debut patch and
exactly.
all that. Yeah,
exactly. Like the fact that they're part of this and that they know that this company matters and like will actually drive money towards them, and is now going a little bit more mainstream, I think only shows to me that having Fanatics run this ship is going to be better for the hobby than if Panini had continued running the ship, which was basically doing the same thing over and over again. You might.
It will.
Yeah.
First off, customer service from Panini. I don't know if you've ever formally dealt with them, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it, even on the littlest stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to get into this account. Oh, okay. Too bad. Or whatever. And you're just like,
yeah, everything I've heard. And so I only buy singles. I don't buy wax. I don't do any of that stuff. So I would never buy a redemption because everybody's heard the horror stories on those. But yeah, everything I've heard is not great for Panini. It sounds like there's like 3 people that are like everybody considers their hero, because if you work with these 3 people or these names, then they'll help you out. But if you don't have those names, you're kind of like up a creek without a paddle kind of thing. So yeah. I think that having one company run it all with the leagues and the players owning part of that company is best for the hobby, because they're now incentivized to do right for everyone. So yeah.
No, I would totally agree on the hands of the wheel changing not being a negative, just in the sense of, like you said, Panini's just going to go up, rinse, recycle, repeat. Let's add more. Oh, hey, let's take you to the zoo. Here's a zebra. Here's a tiger.
Yeah.
Here's this is the peacock though. This is the big, like, eventually it's like, look, man, I'm going to need, I'm old school. I would think one of one would be appropriate, but go figure. It's probably more marketable to have 100 one of ones. It's just, oh, hey, this is the 101, and it's like, it just takes away from the desire to want to like collect, set build, rainbow, what have you. So with that being said, do you think Panini's going to have a presence at all? I mean, I know they have WNBA stuff. I think the WNBA stuff is a lock. And the WNBA stuff, in my personal opinion, looks really amazing. It looks really good this year, at least. I mean, they have, we got to make it count. Now, I don't know how that'll be moving forward. But, what are your thoughts?
So on the WNBA front, what's interesting and what I don't think people understand about the WNBA is that the NBA owns part of the WNBA. And so if the NBA also owns Fanatics Collectibles, whenever that contract expires, and I don't know when it does, Panini's going bye-bye. Like, I don't see how that happens, or like how they would stick with the competition when they literally own part of the company that produces everything else. But I think Panini sticks around. Like, they still do stuff in Europe, like there's stickers and soccer and stuff like that. So I think they'll stick around in Europe, and they might do some of this NIL stuff with college athletes. So I think they'll always be around, but they definitely need to figure out what their new strategy or what their new niche is, because they clearly lost all the major sports in North America. They have a stronghold somewhat because they're known in Europe, but I think Fanatics and Topps have also cut some deals with some of those soccer leagues in Europe. Like I think it's the English Premier League or one of those. Like I don't follow it very often, but I remember seeing something about that. So it's not like Panini can just count on Fanatics just staying in North America either. And so maybe it's time for them to double down on their home turf in Europe and the soccer and stuff over there. Whether or not they have a long-term future in North America, I don't know. Like they'll still produce stuff, but whether or not it's relevant, like they might just become Leaf 2.0, right? And you can make a decision as to whether or not that is a small or large part of the hobby based off of how you think of Leaf. So that would be my answer to that.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, one thing that does interest me, just kind of still harping on the whole Panini thing, I think picking up some of the big ones, like the big 101s, the RPA number to 99 of big players, I really could see a scenario, especially if it's the right player, right person. Obviously, like, you know, a perfect storm definitely has to occur. But I mean, I could really see a lot of these kids who are children now, 16, 17, once some time happens, Panini disappears, and then they go, man, that was the stuff, the big, thick cards. You had the fat auto on card. I think obviously you got to get the right player,
Yep.
but I think a lot of that holds weight. And I think it's kind of the same thing with like the kabooms, downtowns. They seem super interesting as far as, not a long-term play, but like something that, you're going to move. You just kind of put it back,
I think I agree with you. I think that's more true of early Panini year stuff, because 2020 onwards, how many different, like you were saying, how many different one-of-ones, how many different RPAs from obviously National Treasures, but then there's Flawless, there's Immaculate, there's Noir, there's Spectra, like one and one or one. And it's just, there's so many that I can't imagine that those will, they're so just very interchangeable, right?
Yes.
And whereas like if you go back to 2014, 15, that is a lot more rare. And more importantly, it is at least associated with the player, right? Whereas all the stuff now that is being produced, all these quote unquote RPAs, like I'm saying quote unquote because the patch has nothing to do with the player.
It's a Dick's Sporting Goods patch.
I love
at best.
At
best, I mean, I would assume, maybe they're cheaping out and going and hitting Walmart up.
Maybe you get a bulk deal from exactly. But and so one of the predictions that I made in 2023 in one of my videos, it has not yet come true. But in basketball, my prediction was that Flawless will become the brand ahead of National Treasures, because in basketball, Flawless is the only product that has RPAs that are actually game worn for rookies. No other product, like literally no other brand of Paninis for RPAs has game worn, game used, like patches, swatches, whatever you want to call them. And so when you have 14 different brands with non-game used, not associated with any player, and then you have the one brand that actually is related to the player and the player has worn it, that is the differentiator. And so I think I made a 1 year prediction. It has not come true, but I think down the road for basketball, Flawless will become the brand because of that. And that is true as of 2020 and 2021. I haven't checked 2022. 2023 hasn't even come out yet, which is a whole other thing. But I think if we're talking about RPAs in the ultra modern era, or whatever you want to call it, I think Flawless will be the one that stands the test of time because they're different from all the others. But I think you're also right about Panini, like the early year kabooms, like from 2013, I think it was, when they look more cartoony. And the downtowns from those earlier years will have a lot more staying power, because you look now and kabooms and downtowns, they're everywhere too, right? Like they're being overprinted, just like all the different parallels that Panini's doing.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that is the problem, is that there's too many of those um, iconic, if you want
Yeah,
to call it that.
it's not as rare as a lot of
Exactly.
people. Yeah, that's and I totally understand the point you're trying to get across on the it it's rare, but it's not rare in the sense of actual amount of them, because when you start looking at some of these players, you go, bro, I've seen like 20 of these kabooms on eBay
Exactly.
versus, like you mentioned, the earlier kabooms, the old cartoony kabooms. Probably another notable card at that time was the stained glass.
Yep.
That's one of the ones that I've always loved. I believe, I think Kobe has one, but I know for sure LeBron has one. But it's it's stuff like that. Obviously, you would want to chase if you're sitting aside, but yeah, man, that's, I see all these people, they hold up the kaboom and they're like, oh, this is the like, and everybody collect your own way. But as far as, you think you're going to buy it for one price and a week later flip it for the next price, unless something miraculous happens, or God forbid, the worst happens and somebody
Right.
passes, it's not going to move like that. I
Yeah.
like the slow and steady. I don't
Yeah.
like the erratic. I don't like the, well, catch them right before spring training. No, I'm good. I don't want to play the game.
Yeah, and I would say the one other one that I want to throw in there, that will probably stand the test of time if you have the right player, and it doesn't even need to be a rookie card, is gold prisms, because they're not one of ones. Because one of one, trying to collect a one of one is, it's, you're just going to lose to
Yes.
like someone who's rich. Like, let's just be honest, right? But a gold prism, you could at least reasonably have a chance of getting. And so, what is interesting is Topps is obviously going to take over the licenses for basketball and football in the next year or two, right? And one of the things that Topps has done with their flagship product is, and I've made a video about this, but this is upcoming video, spoiler alert, I suppose, is they've turned in Topps flagship, they've turned their black parallel, they've gotten rid of it. And that used to be out of 71, or some number in the 70s, serial number out of 70, 71, something like that. They've gotten rid of it completely and then replaced it with a black foil, serial numbered out of 10. And so I think they are positioning that as like the flagship product, basically gold prism, but for Topps and not Topps Chrome, to make that the chase card. And then it'll be consistent across baseball, basketball, football. This is all my theory. I have no inside information. But to me, that is a strategy, because I've heard some people being outraged, like, I love the black parallels and blah, 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 blah. I can't believe they got rid of it. Why did they get rid of it? It's like, well, no, it's because they're just now replacing it, not taking the rarity down so that it's serial number of 10 instead of in the 70s. And then that becomes like the gold prism-esque chase card for Topps flagship. And then they'll carry that on to basketball and football and make it consistent across all the products. That is what my theory is that they're going to do. And so, but that's also why I think gold prism will stand the test of time, because they're like, Topps is kind of more or less taking that idea, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, so two things. I totally agree. So with the gold to 10, I try to buy every gold to 10 I can. I'll be honest with you. I missed out on a deal this weekend with 4 gold to 10 WNBA cards, and the guy who bought the deal, he called me and goes, "Oh, by the way, I sold one of those for $65." And I was like, "Yeah." And it was not much more than that number of what was being asked. And you're like, dude, I knew it was a smoking good deal. But one of the things I really wanted to hammer on, that's kind of a gripe that I've had, that I've always said would fix or positively improve the hobby, is if there could be some uniform,
Yeah.
hey, This is a gold to 50. This is a red to 25, blue to 100, whatever amongst the sports, because that's probably one of the most intimidating parts of coming into the hobby today. It's not so much what box, what brand. It's what am I looking at? Is this the giraffe?
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, you don't know, especially coming off the street. Like,
oh yeah, it was one of the hardest things for me to catch up on when I came back during the pandemic. There's all these parallels. Like, what's the difference between immaculate and impeccable? They sound like the same thing, but they're two different things. But then I'm also told National Treasure is also flawless. Like, and then but then there's also these shiny cards. Like, what's Prism? But then there's also Select. Like, what? And there's just so many. And then,
but it's a quartzite, and you're like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, and then like Obsidian and Noir look kind of cool, but nobody cares about them. But they look cool. I don't understand. And so I agree. Like, it is so intimidating if you're new and you don't know anything about cards. Like, that learning curve is insane, especially how complicated it is with all the different parallels. But there's like inserts and then parallels of the inserts, and then there's SPs and then an SSP, and then it's like explaining that to a common person.
They're going to think you're a madman or a madwoman. They're literally going to be like, "What is wrong with you?" But it's a gold to 10. Like, it's a big deal. They're like, oh, man, this guy's crazy.
Yeah, and I think I made a video about this, but like, there's a brand called Noir, but then that's different than the brand called Black. Like, which is Noir is literally a French word that means black. So what? Why are there two different?
Here's a better one. You've got a Prism parallel that is the black parallel, but then you have a whole set that is Prism Black, and you're like, wait, what? So it's like, oh, no, we knew you guys like that, so this year we made a whole set of that. So it's like, oh, cool. So you washed away any value that former set had. Thank you.
I think the most insane thing that Panini has done is, or I don't know if it's insane, but it's illogical. And again, this is another one of my videos that I have in the back of my mind that's on this like notes app, is the fact that Chronicles exist, and within Chronicles, because Chronicles is just one product with a bunch of like smaller brands in it, but one of the smaller brands in it is Prism. So you could get like real Panini Prism, but if you buy Panini Chronicles, you could get a Panini Chronicles Prism card.
Prism, but it's not a Prism.
But then on top of that, you could get a Panini Chronicles Prism gold card of a player, and it looks exactly like a Panini Prism card, different picture, but it's not. And so if you're new to the hobby, you might think this is a Prism gold card. Oh my God, I'll buy a pay whatever. And then you come to find out, you have to flip on the back to read that it actually is Chronicles. But on the front, it says Panini Prism. And then you look back on the back and it says it's numbered out of 10. Yep. Unless you read the fine print on the bottom, it says Chronicles. You don't know that. And that's one of my future videos that I may or may not make. But it's almost like whoever thought of that idea is like, what would be the most confusing design possible? And let's run with that.
Now, hold on.
Yeah.
We will pass the love around because Topps did something very similar where it was like you had a famous Ohtani rookie auto.
Oh, yeah.
Like patch auto with the facsimile auto, right?
Yeah.
And so all these people thought, oh my God, I'm getting an Ohtani rookie auto. And they're paying exorbitant amounts of money for a reprint at best, like not even like a reprint because it's not, the original had an autograph and patch and thick, and this is just a like, why would you do that, Topps? You're like setting up somebody for failure.
100% agree. I think in both cases, if you are going to make that product, make it very clear on the front that it is a reprint. Call it a throwback, call it a whatever you want, but create a product that is so easily confused with the real thing. Like you said, you're just setting up for someone to get ripped off.
Yes.
And so what's the point of that? It's like, I don't understand.
No, I totally agree. I totally
Yes.
agree. Now, I get it. So say like looking at like the 86 Clear Jordan, what was it in the 90s? They
Yeah.
had the God, what is that called? But they stamped it on
Yes.
there. So
Exactly.
you know that it's different. The back looks different. It's got a gloss versus a paper. But it's like, you could look at it from a mile away and go, oh, nope, that's the 90s one. That's not the big deal.
Exactly. Make it obvious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, one of the other things I thought you brought up here recently that I thought was really interesting, and this was actually kind of confirmed personally with me and Amani going to Fanatics Fest, was just the WWE. I
Mhm.
think it is a spicy situation that people are kind of not really paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I put out a video recently that said, what is the next market that could not explode, but go up steadily over time? And so the one I identified was WWE, because if we think back through to the pandemic bubble where everything went, what drove that? Well, one, it was the pandemic. We were all stuck at home and you had nothing to do. So like ignore that part. But it was people being stuck at home with nothing to do, in the sense that, oh, I'm gonna go through my stuff and like see what I can find, and I have more exposure to these things in my home because I'm just spending more time at home. And the other thing was, people like myself in their 30s and 40s, they had this nostalgia of collecting cards from the 90s, right? And so those two things, just increased exposure to cards and also nostalgia, are two really important factors of what drove the increase in the market overall. And so when I think about WWE wrestling, I don't know that there's anything more nostalgic than wrestling from the 80s and 90s for a lot of people in their 30s and 40s. And then in terms of increased exposure, they just signed a huge deal with Netflix, right? Where they, like, my wife got on her Netflix account, got an advertisement for Raw coming to Netflix every time she logged in for like a couple of weeks. And now she's getting advertisements about the Royal Rumble, and she's like, "This isn't for me. Why are they telling me this?" But that increased exposure hits that second thing I'm talking about, right? And then it just seems that the WWE has gotten more mainstream appeal. Like, people from Bad Bunny are involved with it. People like Travis Scott was part of one of the entrances for one of the wrestlers on the premiere episode of Raw. And they've got just a bunch of athletes.
Pat McAfee's my favorite, first and foremost. That's a PC I'm trying to start up, and
Yeah,
it's so hard to find his rookie auto cards. They are so hard to find.
especially, yeah, because you can only imagine a punter didn't exactly get a bunch of product made for him, right? So
No, not at all.
yeah, and so yeah, Pat McAfee, who obviously is a host on ESPN, and is, has a huge following, is one of the announcers for 8 months of the year, and just there, it seems to be more mainstream and more, I don't know what the right word is, acceptable, or even, dare I say it, cool to be like, nobody thinks that wrestling is real. Okay, like, let's just get that
No,
out of.
but it is so much more pop culturally
Yeah,
relevant right now than it has been since I've been a kid. Like
yeah,
when I was middle school, young child, and they're like, "Oh my god, Stone Cold just did," and it's like
yeah,
you're calling your buddies, and you're like, yeah, and it is literally like I talked to a guy the other day at work because God, he had on a wrestling shirt, and I had said something to him, and he goes, "Oh, I watch it with my kids. Like we have a
yeah,
blast. Like makes me feel nostalgic." And he's like,
exactly. There you go. And so with this increased, nostalgia, exposure, it's becoming more mainstream. Like, all these celebrities and athletes are involved with it. One of the things that they've done that's really smart is they've created championship belts with like team logos on it, so the athletes will wear, like, "Oh, I play for the Packers. I got a Packers championship belt." Like,
yes,
really smart marketing stuff like that. Where, well, when you think of that belt, now you think about the WWE, and it's like,
two for
like
one,
it's
two
exactly
for one.
incepting yourself and incepting fans, that this is mainstream and normal. And so with all this exposure, you have to think, well, the WWE is only going to grow in terms of exposure and popularity and it just in everybody's faces. But it's also brings back everybody to that 80s and 90s wrestling if you're of a certain generation. And when there's increased popularity and appeal and exposure, then well, that will move into cards, because some of those people will be interested in cards. Not all of them, but some percentage. Whether that percentage is 1% or 50%, I don't know what that number is, but it's something greater than 0 and less than 100. That's what I can guarantee you. And so as a result, that increased popularity leads to increased interest in wrestling cards, will then increase the card market for wrestling. And so that was the video there was, I think that WWE cards might have a slow, like, I'm not saying this is going to the moon, we're not going to retire off this stuff, but it might have the chance to be the next sport or market to see that increase. Very similar to what's happening with the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark, right? That's a whole other, not at all similar reason, but because there's no nostalgia with it, but that is the same idea.
Well, and not to give away like your whole video on that, but I thought what was really interesting was kind of going like who you thought was a good candidate to invest in versus the others. And the one that I thought of is the Dwayne Johnson, I think it's Bumblebee, the rookie card.
Florida, the football card?
Yep. That's one of those ones that like I've always wanted to grab one. Set it aside, forget about it, because I totally think, not only with, the WWE and all that level of fame, just all the movies and stuff like that. And it's like, there's so many big, I don't know, there's opportunity.
I think so I am not at all familiar with wrestling cards, like which wrestling cards are considered the rookie cards and which ones are not. And I say that in the video. I'm just here to say, here is the reason why I think wrestling cards may or may not go up. And if I were to narrow down to a handful of people, here are the people, which wrestlers, and then it is up to you to figure out which cards of those wrestlers you think has more appeal. And I need to do more research myself to figure that out. And so I don't have the answers. And I think that's one of the things that I always try to do in my videos. Like, I'll tell you what I know, but I also tell you what I don't know. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything, because I certainly don't.
Well, I like the part of your videos where it just kind of challenges you to think, because it's like, okay, here's the facts. Here's some interesting points. Take it and run with it. It's not there's a lot of content where it's like, hey, you really need to go check out this guy right here. This Jaden Daniels, he's really great. And it's like, I don't really love content like that. I'm more of a, chase what you like. If you're going to get stuck with it, always have something that you can love versus you go, oh man, I'm stuck with this because some guy on the internet said he's going to the moon. And it's like, which I've done that same thing. I mean, I've had plenty of bad buys.
Yeah.
It's never a loss, always a lesson.
Exactly. Oh, I like that. I like the positivity. I've had bad buys and cards I've lost money on, and it's part of the hobby, right? And the way that I've chosen to participate in it. But yeah, if for myself, and we can get reasons why. Like, one of the reasons why, or one of the things that I want my content to do is to make you think. I'm not going to, like, if someone or many people in the hobby and in the content creation space have covered a topic, I'm not going to be the 26th video on the same thing. I have no interest in that. I want to make content that makes you think a little. If you learn something in the process, great. But at the very least, make it go, huh? Oh, I never thought of it like that. Or challenge existing beliefs held in the hobby, or bring new insights in the hobby. If you watch my videos and that is one of your takeaways, then I've done my job. That makes me happy. And that's why, like, I'm not in this to get famous, because if you haven't noticed in my videos, I am never on camera, because most of the time that I record my videos,
everybody should get in the comments and tell them to get on camera, because I've been telling them, put a picture of your face on the profile picture. get on, at least be a little bubble, let's get those, those Twitch vibes going.
Yeah. Because like most of the time I'm not on camera, it's because it's like 1 a.m. I'm in my pajamas and I'm recording, and I haven't shaved in 3 weeks or 3 days, and my wife will tell you that's not a good look. So most of the time I just like I do it. I stay off camera. It's quick and easy. I upload it, and then I create. I have more thumb. Honestly, I have a lot of fun creating my thumbnails. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, I love creating thumbnails. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's one of the things I told Amani when the new year happened. Amani and Yabo, I was like, our thumbnails have, like, just every time you look, you go, it's getting better. It's like your little art. It's fun. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
blast.
exactly.
Are you on Canva? What are you editing on?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
And
fun.
it's because there's a bunch of people where it's like the same format. You have someone going like got a shocked face and then like whatever, and I'm like, okay, like that's great, like maybe that works for the YouTube algo, but I don't do this to, like I said, I don't do this to get famous. I do this for fun. I do this and some other reasons which we may not talk about, but I do this for fun. And like I created a thumbnail that was Mortal Kombat, and it delighted the heck out of me. And the one that I made recently, I used something like a reference to Back to the Future, and it absolutely thrilled me to no end.
Yes.
And
we always try to throw the little Easter eggs into ours, where it's like if you see it, and you're like, oh my god, that's like, if you get it, you get it.
Yeah, I just realized the one that I really enjoyed. I made a reference to the double rainbow guy from YouTube from like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That delighted me to no end that I got a double rainbow guy thumbnail and made that as my reference. And you don't want to know the amount of time that I went on Google searching for the perfect double rainbow picture to make that my thumbnail. Like it's like that kind of stuff. Like I don't take myself too seriously, and so I just try to have fun with my content.
Okay, so we lightly talked about this off camera, and I almost told him to stop the camera. We're just going to start recording. I always hear people go, "Oh, I don't know, I feel like I want to make content, this, that, the other." But we were having a conversation off camera, and you kind of discussed why you got into content creating, and I thought it was absolutely a great story, and you should share because it's going to speak to people 100%.
Okay, sure. So yeah, we were talking about this before we started recording. So in my day job previously, I worked for a company where I did analytics. And what you do when you work in analytics for a large corporation is you make decisions based off of numbers and data. And if you ever worked an office job and done this type of corporate strategy analytics job, what you do is you're given a problem and you have to come up with data and create some fancy charts and create a PowerPoint deck, which does not sound sexy, but it is sometimes fun. And then you present that deck and your findings and say, because of the data showing this, that, and the other, we should take this path, and this is the decision we should make. So like, if we want to get into the nitty gritty, it's like, here is how we should create our incentive structure for sales in this company that I work with. That's one of the things I've done is like, here's the whole infrastructure and basically performance measurement system for how to like identify which employees are doing well and not well. And so I did this for a long period of time. And then about 5 years ago, I moved to a job where I didn't do this at all. I moved completely out of the analytics space into a totally different space that didn't require any of these skills. I just do the same thing more or less over and over again. I don't create any narratives, and I don't create PowerPoint decks. I work with data, but in a very different way. And so as a result of that, I was afraid I'm going to lose the skill set that I've built up over a period of time, being able to tell stories with data. And at some point in life, I might want to return to my old field, my old job, that whole area of analytics. But if I don't keep up with that skill set, I'm going to lose my fastball. I'm going to lose my game. I'm going to that muscle is going to disappear, that skill. And so this happened right around the pandemic. I started this new job in July of 2019, and the pandemic hit. And then I got back into cards and I started watching content online. I'm like, you know what would be really good is if I start creating content for cards, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of it out there that focuses on analytics and numbers and data and business and economics. And that way, well, first of all, it's fun for me because I get to create content about cards. That's fun. I like cards. And more importantly, I keep that analytics muscle going by still creating content. So you'll see a lot of the content I produce, I create basically a PowerPoint presentation. Some of it might be a little bit boring to you, but I'm doing it for myself, for my self-interest, because again, I'm interested in cards, but also to make sure that I can still tell a story with data. And so I don't lose that fastball. I still got that muscle. I'm still building on that skill set. And honestly, I find that I now, when I present at work, I think the fact that I'm making YouTube videos twice a week and really working on telling the story, and I'll edit stuff and I'll redo stuff because I don't like the way it's done, it probably has helped me present at work as well. So the reason why I created content was to not, like I said, not to get famous, to make sure that I could continue with my analytical abilities for my day job if I ever decided to change back to my original job. So that's the story.
No, I think that's amazing, honestly. Like, I love the fact of, with telling the story with data. Like you said, it challenges you to think about stuff. You are literally sitting there going, hey, here's my given facts, here's given knowledge, here's where we're at. What do you think? And I really enjoy that type of content, that style of. One of the things that I feel like there's a lack of right now in this time age that we're in is like critical thinking. And it's just like a superpower. It's like for you to critically think and go, this might sneaky be a good deal or bad deal. It's just, I feel like, and obviously I've fallen victim to it too. But so many people go, oh my gosh, this guy said this top 5 list and this is what I need to buy. And it's like, they don't understand why they're in this cycle of like, you bought at the top and sold at the bottom and you did it again and again and again. And eventually, it just wears people out and runs them off.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the nature of how cards are sold in the hobby, if you really think about it, it is literally just follow what the last guy did. Because how do we price any and all of our cards? It is comps. It is purely off of comps. It is follow the leader, follow what the last guy did, and try to get 85% of that, right? And so, sure, that is a way to comp things, but that is the way everybody chooses because it's the easiest way. And in a lot of cases, it makes sense for something that's mass produced. And there's the pop count is in the thousands, but you're more likely to find deals if you look at some of the more rare stuff of some of the off-brand. And when I say off-brand, basically what I'm saying is like not Topps Chrome, not Prism, any of those where there's an established market, and it is easier to price those things. So for example, I bought a card on one of Golden's auctions a year and a half ago. It was a noir gold Nikola Jokic, numbered out of 10 from his rookie year. And I was like, I don't think this is priced properly. But there's no comps on this thing. But I think it's more than what this number I paid for was. So I'm going to buy that. And then another one I bought was, again, from Golden. It was a Kyle Lowry Topps, I think it's Finest. It was mislabeled. It was listed as a rookie card. It's actually an XRC, and it's a superfractor. And I live in Toronto, and I'm like, what are the chances that someone who is a Toronto Kyle Lowry collector is gonna find this on Golden, who is looking on Golden for a Kyle Lowry? Because nobody's selling Kyle Lowry cards on Golden. That's nobody's doing that. And so is it in line with what it sold other super collectors sold for previously? Sure, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But I bought it. I still have it, or it's in a vault somewhere. I'm willing to bet that I can find someone in Toronto who is a Raptor super collector, because there's a bunch here, that would pay more than what the comp says when you look it up on Card Ladder or Market Movers on 30 Point, because they just want it for their PC and they don't need to just follow the leader or follow the last sale.
Well, not only that, when it's working with something, and this is my favorite go-to line when somebody's giving you a hard time about a price on a 101. I just shrug my shoulders and say, go find another one.
Yeah.
Like, good luck. Like, it's right here.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. And so, yeah, that's where I now, like, that's, if we talk about going back a little bit to our conversation about like where I quote unquote invest, is rare stuff that nobody's thinking about. Or, you know, in some of these cases where it's a lot harder to find or a lot harder to value, I think there's value to be had there. Whereas if you buy a Silver Prism PSA 10, like, best of luck to you. It's like
that is the cattle mindset. Literally,
exactly.
Just cheap going in a line just to be slaughtered.
Yeah, and if you look at the Panini Prism cards from this last basketball year, the photos look awful. They don't look like
awful.
Like they're awful. You know, we've talked about the Wemby Prism card, right, where he's behind a black curtain, and like I mentioned earlier, I am a crazy basketball nerd. I can tell you exactly where that photo is taken from. It's from their photo shoot day right after they got drafted, where they all do a bunch of poses and whatever behind a black curtain, and like there's video footage of that. It's not a game photo. It's not even from it's not even from Summer League. If it was from Summer League, I could buy into that. It's just from a photo shoot day that they all did, which is why it all looks exactly the same. And if you look on the ground in those photos, you'll see different lines, and they look like they're going all over the place. It's because they're either, I don't think it's because they're cords from the various photo shoot things. It's because they're in a gym doing this photo shoot, and they're like the 3-point lines, but in like, think of like a high school gym where there's like lines going all over the place, because you need to like use the gym for like basketball,
for other sports. Yeah.
For other sports. That's why they're like these crazy lines going all over the place. So it's like, this is definitely from the photo shoot day. Why would anybody want this photo of a card? Oh, like, let's say you love Wemby. Of all the pictures of him, why would you want this photo of him next to a black curtain? Well, the only reason why is because everybody tells you the Prism Silver is the card to have. The card itself looks horrendous. And there's plenty of other cards that look way better of Wemby. But it's this like follow the leader mindset of like, well, this is the investment product for basketball, so you must get it, and blah 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 blah. And like that's how we got, and like I fell victim to this as well, where during the pandemic it was like Prism Base, Prism Silver. That's what you do. Yep. I was told that. I remember when I got that learning curve, I was told that by people, and not just like sports card collect.
Multiple.
But like people, like dealers in the industry. It was the worst advice I've ever been given, and I regret hearing that advice. And I lost a lot of money because of that. But it's just just do what everybody else is doing. Like, no, make this hobby your own. Do something that excites you. Don't just buy something because someone else says you should buy it, because that is the card that everybody else is going to want to buy. Which is why I bought that like Topps or Tim Duncan X Factor I talked about earlier, right? Like, card looks freaking cool, man. I like it.
No, I'm with that.
So that's like, if we go back to my content, is like, yeah, it's like, let's create content that makes it think a little bit, challenges your assumptions, what you want to collect and what you want to quote unquote invest in, whatever it is that you're doing in the hobby, right? I'm not here to tell you how to operate in the hobby, but use more of a critical mind.
So, kind of going back to a past mention, you'd said that you had been to the expo. How many card shows do you think you've been to this kind of like last year? Like how actively are you going to these shows?
So I went to the National, obviously, where I met you. Had probably the most fun night I've had. in any card show, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, you guys, man, you guys are the best. So went to the National. The expo happens twice a year, so I go to both of those. And then there is a local, so that's 3. And then in Toronto, there is a local show that's popped up that has been popping off, like lines out the door. And so there was one in December. There was one, I think, in September, October. And then there's another one happening in February. So it happens every 2 months or so. And it just started up, I think, over the summer. But this one, they had to open up the space for February, this upcoming show. They had to increase the floor space because it was just, there's so many guys. It was just jammed. And it was so busy there that I wasn't comfortable. It was so, I could not move through many of the aisles. And I was telling
I love it like that. That's a great show. That's the money's in the room.
I was talking to one of the dealers I know well, shout out to Sports Card Cartel, and he was like, "Oh man, it's so jammed in here. It's uncomfortable." And I'm like, "Yeah, I have been physically touched in a way I do not appreciate multiple times."
You just gotta tell him, buy you a drink.
And so that's the show that I go to, and it happens every 2 months. So I went to 2 of those. There was also like a really small show called the Leaside Show that I went to, but it's just for like, it was, I think it was December 20th. So I had nothing to do. So I just like went to it. It was fine. So I probably went to this year. I went to, so the 3, 4, 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but like, obviously the big one is the National, and then the two expos here in Toronto that happen twice a year. Those are the big ones.
We still need to twist your arm and get you to come to a Dallas show. You need to experience Dallas.
The
flight
is too expensive, man. The hotels and flight, yeah.
Just make it there. You'll make the money. 100%. 100%. Because even from where we were from, it was an expensive flight. Yeah. But so kind of, what do you think? Like, okay, because this is one thing I like to ask everybody on here. What place do you think the card shows have? And if you were new to the hobby, why would, or to somebody who's new to the hobby, why would you suggest going to a card show? Like, I mean, everybody's got Whatnot, everybody's got eBay, Fanatics Collect, whole nine. Why go to a show?
So obviously the world has become more digital, and it's become more, we operate through a screen. This is one of the rare opportunities for you to interact with actual people about a thing that you all enjoy. One of the reasons why I love going into the trade night, I just get to nerd out about cards because I like cards with other people who like cards, and that's fun. And so if you go to a card show, that is it. You get to talk about things that make you happy with other people who enjoy the same things. And especially that's why I love the trade nights, because now you're not dealing with dealers, you're just dealing with like fellow collectors or hobbyists or whatever you want to call them. And so, I met you guys there, and that's basically what we bonded over, right? It's just, cards are fun, cards are cool. I dig this very niche thing in life, and so do you. And let's just talk about it and have a good time while we're doing it. There's obviously going to be people that you get along with, like we did. There might be some people that you don't get along with. Well, then don't spend your time with those people. Find the people that is your, like, find that brotherhood, find that people you like that are your vibe, whatever that vibe is. And you get to hang out with people that you like and talk about things that you like. And the thing about the National is also, and the Expo, is you get to see a bunch of stuff that is unique and rare. And whether or not that is cards or memorabilia or just interesting people, you will find something interesting. And that could be like weird signed, like Donald Trump memorabilia. I remember seeing that at the National in Cleveland this year. I think it was like right after he got shot at, right? And
yeah,
so
it was the guy. He had the signed photo right after he had gotten shot, and we were like, "Wait, whoa! This happened like it was days, almost a week before the National." It's like, bro, you already got this authenticated?
Yeah, like I was like, how do you have this? How is this even possible? It was days ago, and I'm like, oh man, like I'm from Canada, but I'm like, oh, American,
hey, you got shot, come sign this. Come on.
It's like everybody trying to make $1. I kind of love it.
USA,
right?
baby.
Yeah, USA, right? And so you're bound to see something that you're not ready to see, you're not expecting to see. There is this infamous guy at the Sport Card Expo. I believe his name is it also Jerry? I could be wrong. But there's this guy. He's got a booth. It is the messiest booth you've ever seen. It's just bundles and bundles of cards. He was interviewed by Mojo Sports, who was there. He was talking to this guy, and it's just like it is just absolute chaos in this table. It's cards wrapped up with elastic bands and like top loaders or whatever, and it's just like think of a full booth, and it's just piles, and there's no organization in any way, shape, or form. It is just absolute madness.
Those are for the set builders, though, right?
Yeah, and it's from all sports. It's from all years. It's from whatever, and like just dig in, and you could literally spend an hour at the booth and not be done. I truly believe that. And you don't. It's just he is this guy who is now infamous at the show. To me, anyways. Like maybe he's been a mainstay. I don't know how long, but that's the messy table guy. That's how I view him. And then also at the expo, the first time I went to the expo, I'm like, why is there a booth selling, and I swear to God, smoked sausage? Got a full booth selling like kibasas and like whatever else, spicy, not whatever. You want some pepperoni, whatever. It's like
First off, we need that booth over here in Alabama. I'm 100% paying 100% comps on smoked sausage. I'm not coming at you at no 60 comps. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And so you come into card show, and then all of a sudden you got a table, and you can smell it from like a mile away, right? Like it's everything. It's all cards, and then there's this like table selling sausage, and they're always there. I don't know why they're there, but I guess.
Okay, hold on. Rate the sausage real quick. Is it decent?
I didn't. So it's all packaged up, like it's all in plastic wrap.
Oh, so you've not even tried it?
No, because I don't want to carry that around with my cards and get it all like oily or whatever, right? Like I don't know what's gonna happen. But it's not for you to eat there. It's like a big package for you to bring home. Like it's all wrapped in plastic.
That's
and it's
crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like, where's the sausage booth this year? Is an actual question that I've heard asked. Or it was like, or like, oh yeah, no, like if I'm trying to find someone.
First off, if I was setting up as a dealer, I would always require them like, hey, set me up next to the sausage guy or gal. That way, when their line is kind of, come over, hang out. Yeah, I got some Pokemon, I got some sports. Eat you a sausage, you good.
And
that's fun.
Yeah, and I was trying to meet with another guy I knew there because, and I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm like right in the back area by the wash and whatever. And I'm like. And he's like, I'm booth number this. I'm like, it's really hard to find. And then I find my way there. And I'm like, why don't you just tell me you were 2 booths to the left of the sausage guy? That's all I need to know. And I'll be able to find it. It's not that hard. This is an absolute landmark in the show.
Let's go.
And so this is one of the, it's one of those like fun little things where you go to a card show, you're going to find something you're not expecting. You're going to find something unique. You're going to find something fun. And eclectic, and you get to hang out with people that you like, that talking about something that you like. That's why you should go to a card show.
I totally agree.
And you might get a sausage in there while you're.
Hey, you might get a sausage in there too. So kind of talk us through what's something or some things that you've noticed that are people kind of doing wrong. I know you've mentioned a few things that are pretty notable already. That maybe a newer collector could look at this, listen to this, and go, okay, hey, I could improve on this and this. I think you mentioned a T on the chasing the bays and the silvers and all that. But you think there's anything real notable that you could mention?
Don't buy product when it comes out. Like don't do that. Don't buy any rookie stuff of anybody who's drafted. I know more basketball than football, so if you're buying anybody who was drafted in the NBA lottery, you're probably making a mistake. You need to buy if you're looking to invest, right? If you want to collect someone, buy whatever you want. knock yourself out. I always say if you're looking to collect a player, and this is in your PC,
Collect your own way.
Yeah, collect however you want to collect. But if you're actually looking to quote unquote invest or prospect or whatever you want to call it, for NBA at least, if you're buying cards of someone who was drafted in the lottery within the first like 1 or 2 years since that product came out, it's an uphill battle. Like Wemby, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like there's no way that stuff holds up. Could it still have long-term value? Sure, but they will not hold its current value. And so if you want to quote unquote prospect or invest or whatever, buy either players who are drafted later, who are not well known, who you think have the ability to do well and outperform their expectations. Or if there's someone who's drafted in like the top 10, whether that's basketball, football, whatever, baseball. Baseball's weird. Forget baseball. For basketball, football, wait until like year 3. And then most of these guys by that point in basketball, they're then 21 because they can draft them when they're 19. And the chances of them having done anything are pretty low unless they're like Wemby or like a top 5 pick, right? And so you're more likely to see those players just absolutely tank in value because they're playing like they're coming off the bench and playing like 15 minutes a game. But that's not how the career arc of players goes. Like the chances of someone being a superstar at 21 or 22 is way lower than they are at 25, 26, 27. But when you're 25, 26, 27, and you're drafted at 19, that's year 6. But all the hype is in year 1 and year 2. And so if you've done okay, but you're not a somebody by year 2, that is the case for most players, again, unless you're like a top 5 pick. But you still, and by that point, people have moved on with their lives, right? Like, think of how many people who were like Zion. That was 2019. That was 6 years ago. He's sort of somebody, but like I feel like now is where his prices should have been all along, as opposed to where they were when he first got drafted. So that would be my advice: is if it's a top pick, don't buy when it first comes out. Wait.
100%. Listen, I see it happen every product, every year, almost every month. Somebody goes, "Oh my God, this new Bowman product comes out. Let me spend all this crazy." And it's like for a guy who's not even played yet. It's just like, or this kid's in high school, and you're like, you dropped $100,000 on that? Like, I would rather purchase that many 86 Fleer Jordans. Give me as many, you know what I mean? Like, let's work it out.
Right. And I would say the other thing is, the more safe play is to, like, there is so much volatility with any current player because of all the things that could go wrong and also all the things that could go right. But if you are looking to invest, make money, whatever you want to call it, this is going to sound boring, but buy retired players. Or players do, they have good careers. But generally retired players. Buy like the GOATs. Don't go for like second tier Hall of Famers. That would be my overall advice, because if you think about basketball, again, I'll stick with basketball because that's what I know best. How many players actually have long-term collectability in their retirement? If you think about it now, it's like there's Jordan, there's Kobe, there's like Bird and Magic. There's like the guys from like the 60s and 70s, but even then, it's like, well, it's like Wilt and Bill Russell, and then like maybe a handful of others, like and that's about it. Like, and then there's like a handful of like Allen Iverson, but there's like Dirk had a great career, and his cards are fine. They have value, but they don't have like crazy value. But I would say he's like a second tier guy, and even like a first tier guy like Tim Duncan doesn't have much of a market. And think of how great his career is, and look at how much his rookie cards are worth now, and look at how much rookie cards are of players in their rookie season.
Oh
They
yeah,
will
it's
not,
crazy. No, you
they
compare
will,
that to a Wemby rookie, and you're sitting there going, "You paid $10,000 for the Wemby? He's not done anything." I mean,
yeah, and
he's got great stats. He can really ball. But personally, knock on wood, I don't wish injury upon anybody. But it does just seem statistically that somebody over, a certain,
height.
height statistically is bound to get certain injuries. And you look at those ankles and you go, ugh, bad stuff's coming.
Yeah,
Hopefully not, but
yeah. No way to know, but there's definitely an injury risk that is not baked in, I would say. Like,
yeah,
there's,
if you're buying Mickey Mantle, he's not tearing an ACL,
yeah,
he's not pulling a Wander Franco.
exactly. Uh, yeah, so I would say, yeah, the if you're looking to invest long term, you want to just buy something, put it away, not think about it. Like retired players, and like the top tier Hall of Famers, whatever sport you want. Like you want soccer, Pele, Maradona, and Ronaldo and Messi. Like,
Well,
like
let's flip the script. Tell
yeah,
me kind of what's some things you've seen people that you would kind of, advice you would, kind of like what you're already doing right now. But what are some things that you see people doing right? Because I see a lot more people personally now doing more research than it felt like they were doing in 2020. In 2020, it was a
yeah.
madhouse. I'll buy anything. Now it seems more people are taking the time to go, oh, hey, it's not just Bola Bola we're going for. We're going for, this or that.
I would say what I think I'm encouraged by is that we don't see the crazy pricing from 2021 when rookies come out. So like I think a lot of people have seen what has happened in the past of when cards and product. Remember like Mac Jones, he had that base card that sold for 3K or something. Insane, right?
No, like 100 and something K. Yeah, to the little
Nobody,
kid.
this is like a base card that sold for 3K.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
PSA 10. It was like a Don Russ base. It sold for 3K or something crazy. And now it's worth like $10 or something, right? And so
Yes.
we see a lot less of that. So I think the hobby has smartened up. Or honestly, like a little bit of Darwinism, like the person that probably bought that card for 3K, probably not around in the hobby anymore. The survival of the fittest kind of thing.
I would agree with that one.
Yeah. And so that I think people are doing right. I think people are now collecting more and thinking about cards that they actually want to hold long term. We talk about the end user. I think like there's more focus of like, oh, if I'm going to be caught, quote unquote, holding the bag, I want to hold a card that makes me happy. So like,
Yes.
I mentioned that Tim Duncan extractor. If that card goes down, like that's cool, but that's in my forever PC unless someone like knocks me over with an offer that is ridiculous. And so I think that card is cool, and every once in a while I'll look at it and be like, oh, look at that, little squiggly wigglies move around the background when I move this extractor. It's kind of fun. So I think there's a lot more of that. And so that's why I think silver prisms in general still have a ways to go downwards for 99% of people. But I think there are now people more focused on collecting. And I think for the health of the hobby, that's good. So that's one of the things that I'm feeling more than seeing. There's a lot more content around that stuff too. Like this is what I'm doing for my PC. This is whatever. I feel like before it was always like invest. Now there's more content around. This is my PC. This is what I'm collecting, or this is the photography that I like. I feel like there's way more discussion around, oh, the photography for this product sucks, or this photography for this set is awesome. And so, and my I don't know if it's a hot take, but my take is like, like I mentioned that Tim Duncan card from '07 Topps Chrome. I think '07 Topps Chrome has the best photography of like any set. Like all the cards look amazing because they're all game.
They're action shots.
Action shots, yeah, but that's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Yeah, like, and for a hot second there, I was like, do I want to collect the entire '07 Topps Chrome X Factor set? And then I looked at the price of the Kevin Durant because that's rookie year. I'm like, I will not be doing that. But for a second I was like, oh, do I then just collect because I'm like, I can't afford this top. Well, I mean, I don't want to pay for this Kevin Durant, but maybe to make it easier for myself, what if I just collect who I consider to be the top 10 players of all time in the X Factor? So that for that set, it'd be Shaq. You could argue Shaq, but it was like Shaq, LeBron, Kobe, Tim Duncan. You only need 4, and I had the Kobe and I have the Tim Duncan. I sold the Kobe, but that was one thing I was considering doing for a while.
You've got to pick up the Shaq though. The Shaq's nasty.
Yeah. I had to search for it for a while, but then once I let it go, like once I sold the Kobe, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not doing this anymore. But yeah, the Shaq is a fun card, and it's like it's not that expensive. It's like a couple $100, like $300. Like I've seen it sold. It's fine. But yeah, like it's fun chases like that too. Also, the people are doing more of it, seems like, for their own PC, for their own enjoyment, for that chase, but in a healthy way, not like the lottery chase of, oh, maybe I'll get this one of one and become a millionaire. It's more of like let me chase this set that I want to collect. Let me chase this like niche thing that I want to get.
Well, hey man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Kind of use this as your time, like shameless plug. Like, you give us a solid outro of just like,
yeah. So simon466cards on YouTube and on Instagram. On Instagram, I don't post as much unless you're into. Thank you. Into basketball stuff, but yeah. On YouTube, I put out videos at least twice a week, so Wednesdays and Sundays. I send them out at 7 a.m. I release them at 7 a.m. So it's for the people that wake up early. If you want something to go through coffee, there you go. And so the topics I mainly focus on are economics, business, and analytics. And so I choose those topics because I would like to think I don't want to say expert, but I have a strong knowledge base in them. So business, because the business of sports cards, because I have an MBA, the economics of sports cards, because I also have a master's degree in economics, and data analysis, because that's literally what I used to do in my day job. So I'd like to think I have a strong foundation in those 3 things, and those are the 3 things I talk about. I also talk about other things like PCs and all that kind of stuff, but most of the videos, and there's like a playlist on my homepage on YouTube that separates them. Here are all the economics videos. Here are all the data analysis videos. Here are all the business of sports cards videos. And so those are the main topics I hit about. And like I said earlier, if you watch all my videos and you walk away from the video saying, oh, that really made me think, or oh, I never thought of it that way, or oh, I learned something, then I've done my job. Come for the data analysis, stay for the low quality videos is kind of my mantra.
Hey, it's a vibe, bro. It's a vibe. Yeah. And it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable. It's like a good, like, one of the things that I really enjoy is it's a very easy to digest. Yeah. You can just watch and kind of go, oh, wow. And you gain the knowledge and like you said, you form your own opinion. We're not going to push you, but no Hulk Hogan for you though.
No Hulk Hogan for me. Absolutely. Like that is, as I mentioned earlier, that is part of the vision for the channel. Like, it's to make sure that I can still tell a story with data, with numbers, because I need to do that possibly in the future if I ever change jobs again. So that is one of the goals, is to like keep what might be somewhat dry and boring, at least make it interesting and insightful. And so that's why my videos are like pretty to the point. I like to say, like, they're anywhere from 5 to like 15 minutes. I don't go on for an hour. Like I think my longest video is probably under half an hour, I think. So I don't drone on. Like I'm here to tell you stuff and make a point, and then I'm out. Like, so that's, I'm glad that you and Amani and are enjoying the content.
Well, hey, everybody, go follow, like, share, subscribe. I'm telling you, it's great content. It's going to challenge you to think, and you're literally going to go, Man, I don't know. I like it. I think it's great.
If that is the takeaway, then I'm happy.
Exactly. And it's not just because I've met you. It's literally genuinely because it's digestible. I watch so much stuff and I'm just like, get to the point. Why do I have to scroll 5 minutes into here? I just like chop, chop, chop. I love that. When I'm editing my videos, the whole time I'm trying to chop just to get to that same style.
Yeah. Well, and the fun thing is, so a little behind the scenes, there's minimal editing on my videos. Like I would say 80% of them, it's one take, no cuts, unless I like talk and I have to cut it out. Because
for all our audio listeners, he just stuck his pinky finger up real big. He just flexed out like, oh yeah.
No, so if it seems slightly informal and not professionally cut, it's because I have not touched it at all. And there are so many videos of the cutting room floor where I have to just restart, because I find restarting and like trying to piece together 2 or 3 different videos, I find it difficult. I just do like one stream of consciousness, off we go, and then we're done. Yeah. And so if it's a little less polished than some of the other content out there, well, that's why.
No, man, I tell you, it's good. We just got to get you to show your face. That's the only thing. Just little circle down.
I believe I am in the thumbnail for one of my videos, and that is it, because it was one of the videos from the National.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was in the thumbnail. I was not in the video because I just like carried my camera around and shot footage. But yeah,
fun stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thanks for having me on there.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, remember, this is the Jerry Pitre Show. If you love sports cards and cool collectibles, you're in the right place. Like, follow, share, subscribe. We out of here. Peace.